Have you ever wondered what the last step is before an all-out court war? Well, sometimes it's a letter. But this isn't just any letter. It's basically a legal ticking time bomb. Today, we're going to break down one of these formal demand letters to see what's being threatened, what's being demanded, and why there's a $500,000 price tag attached.
Right off the bat, this is not your typical angry email. It was sent from a guy named Ronnie Hankey to a company, Ultra 5 LLC. And the opening line, it calls this an unequivocal, exigent, and formal demand. Now, in plain English, that means this is your final warning. The gloves are officially off.
So you have to be wondering, what could possibly trigger such a serious final warning? That's really the heart of what we're digging into here. We're about to unpack the specific accusations, the actions that are being demanded right now, and the huge financial penalty that's just hanging over the whole thing.
So let's talk about the tone. How does a letter like this make it so clear that this is the absolute final step? Well, it's all about leaving zero room for misunderstanding. This isn't a conversation starter, it's a declaration.
Just look at the words they chose. Unequivocal basically means we are not messing around. Exigent means you need to deal with this now. And formal means, hey, this is officially going on the record. From the very first sentence, the sender is building a paper trail, and you can be sure that trail leads straight to the courthouse.
Okay, so what is all this about? The letter doesn't just make vague complaints. It lays out a whole pattern of what it calls unlawful and harmful behavior. Let's dig into how they build the case against Ultrafy LLC. The letter paints this really powerful picture of how a relationship just went completely south. Check out this contrast. 1 minute, it's a friendly chat in January 2024, but then a year later, it's a totally hostile situation with associates who were allegedly, quote, inebriated, aggressive, and harassing. This isn't just some random detail. It's a deliberate strategy to make Ultra 5 look completely unpredictable and untrustworthy.
And it's not just about one bad visit. The letter claims there's been a whole campaign of bad behavior. We're talking intrusive surveillance, pressuring an elderly family member, spreading lies, and even refusing to help figure out who was on a property where over 12 grand in tools were stolen. This paints a picture of a broad, sustained effort. And frankly, it looks really bad.
All right, so after listing all these problems, the letter completely shifts gears. It moves from the problem to the solution, or at least the sender's version of a solution. It's a set of 3 non-negotiable demands that they say have to be met right away. And these demands are crystal clear. First, they're told to properly serve all legal documents, which is kind of a subtle jab suggesting they didn't do it right the first time. Second, and this one is huge, they have to preserve all evidence. And third, a classic cease and desist. Stop all the alleged harassment and intimidation, effective immediately. Now, when they say preserve evidence, they really mean everything. We are talking about a potential digital gold mine of surveillance footage, emails, text messages, social media stuff, even internal notes from the last year. This is way more than a request. It's a legal warning shot telling Ultra 5, don't even think about hitting the delete button. And this quote right here, this really gets to the emotional core of the whole conflict. The letter is specifically demanding protection for the sender's elderly mother, accusing the company of trying to take advantage of her. This takes the whole thing from an abstract legal fight and makes it deeply personal. It's about protecting family. Okay, now we get to the part where this gets really interesting, the consequences. Because if these demands are ignored, it's not just a threat of a lawsuit. Nope, there is a very specific and very large dollar amount attached. The message couldn't be simpler. You can ignore this letter, but it's going to be expensive. The sender has already done the math on the alleged damages, and they are ready to send the bill. And there it is, $500,000. That's the counterclaim. In legal speak, it basically means, oh, you're suing me? That's cute. I'm suing you right back, and this is how much I'm asking for. This isn't just a random number. It's the value that Ronnie Hankey is putting on the damage to his reputation, the emotional distress, and everything else he claims they've done. So where does a number like that even come from? Well, the legal basis is something called tortious conduct. It sounds like a fancy legal term, but the idea is simple. It's a civil wrong that hurts someone, which makes the person who did it legally on the hook for the damage. It's the foundation for most personal injury and defamation lawsuits. So, what specific wrongs are we talking about here? This table lays it out pretty clearly. You've got defamation, hurting someone's reputation, invasion of privacy, something called intentional infliction of emotional distress, which is reserved for conduct that's considered truly outrageous, and spoliation, which means destroying evidence. Remember that demand to preserve everything? This is why. It's a legal minefield, and the letter's accusing Ultra 5 of stepping on every single mine.
And finally, the letter slams the door shut with a ticking clock. This reinforces that urgent or exigent nature of the demand we saw at the beginning. The pressure is seriously on. 5. Business. Days. For a legal team, that is an incredibly short fuse to try and defuse a $500,000 bomb. The clock is absolutely ticking.
And that final warning couldn't be any clearer. If Ultra 5 doesn't respond and comply within those 5 days, the very next stop is the courthouse. This isn't a bluff. It's a promise of what comes next, and it looks like the sender is ready to follow through.
So that's where this whole legal showdown is right now. You've got a long list of grievances, a clear set of demands, a $500,000 counterclaim on the table, and a 5-day fuse. It really just leaves us with one massive question. Will Ultra 5 try to de-escalate this, or is this just the first shot in what's going to be a long and very expensive legal war? Only time is going to tell, but one thing is for sure, this fight is just getting started.